All right, so let's start the meeting. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
So happy April. Anna Marie, you're still wherever you are. Is that, if it's Scandinavia, where is that?
It's where I want to be, but can't. I don't know when is the next time.
So why don't we first order of business is just review and approval of the minutes from the March meeting. Do we have a motion to approve? And I'll second, and as Jeff, I'll second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
It's not appropriate for me to propose that they're okay.
That's why I always do it that way.
That they're okay.
Yeah. So on the three agenda topics, and anything else, of course, always we can add any other topics. Three things. One was the database project. So I'm hoping Bob will join because I know there's a lot of work there. So let's just hold on that. Hopefully he'll join. Second is broadband internet access. So there's been some work there and I'll give an update on that. And then the third piece was single sign-on. I've been connecting with Mike Abbott on potential way we could move forward with that. So hopefully Mike will join, but if he doesn't, I at least give it a high level of what the thought was, get some input, and you know, see if there could be some ways to pull some information forward. So maybe at the next meeting we have a more you know, fruitful discussion around that topic.
The monthly website committee of town employees was supposed to be last week, but Sal had an adverse reaction to his second COVID shot.
Oh.
So it was, but he's okay. It was a temporary thing. And he tried to reschedule for tomorrow, but half the people can't be there tomorrow. So it's not happening until a couple of weeks from now at the earliest.
Okay.
I was hoping to get that done on a schedule where they would identify what they were thinking about, and then we could discuss if we had any thoughts on the subject. The way it was working in the past, we were meeting and then they were meeting, and then the first thing they would ask is, what does the technology committee, advisory committee think we should be doing?
Right.
And I'd say, do a good job.
Yeah, I think the one thing that came up in the last meeting, which was good, is at a high level, if they look at the analytics and if there are any areas that are people trafficking to that's not direct links from the homepage or whatever, if there is anything like that,
really isn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably pretty obvious to your point, Paul, where the high traffic areas are to begin with, but you know, if there's something else, I'm assuming COVID's driving a lot of traffic to that red box. Which in my mind is good that a lot of people are coming to the town website, so at least they know it exists. So, you know, if they want to search for something else, maybe they'll come there. So that might be a silver lining on a very, very big cloud. So
I don't think people are too curious about what else is available on the website, honestly.
Right.
I think that's just typical normal.
Right.
People don't go to sites and then say, oh, gee, what is the good stuff that's available here?
Right. Yeah, unless you're new to a town and you're just like, I want to get up to speed on what there is, which I'm going to say would probably be a minority, right? And people just want to be very fully informed versus people just go for all that. So yeah, I think those are the, you know, probably the key things. I see there's new photos on the site, you know, spring photos, so that's nice.
Recycling.
Oh, I haven't been there for a while. I did. Yeah. I do go there for the COVID thingy every once in a while, but
right. Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing that's it. And then of course the only other area is around driving people to do online transactions, you know, and that's less, I would think, less about the website doing it and more about the tax department, the parking department, like, you know, each of those.
Well, it's very desirable for driving traffic to the website because people are going there to pay their transfer station fees and their parking permit fees. They're more likely to find out more about what else is available there, I think.
Right. Yeah, to your point, like, oh, I know I need to pay my parking ticket. Okay, here's the website to go to pay it. But yeah, I think it's, it's more promotion to get people to do that. But yeah, that's less about what the website team could do and more about what the department. And I know the departments are, I think each one of them have said they're trying to get people to do that. But it's just constant communication, I would think.
Should I update Anna Marie on my conversations with Claudia last week? Jeff and I were chatting about what is the meaning of suggestions that people should do more stuff for the town clerk's office. And it appears that, I've known her for 30 years. So I went to have it, I had to go in and sign some stuff. So I went in to chat with Claudia to find out, what her views were on the subject. Apparently, the records, the town records, have in fact been digitized. I haven't seen them. I don't know what that means in terms of facility of access by anybody in the office. Did that reduce the head count in the town clerk's office? I don't think so. But the question came up as to, do you recall the conversation of the last meeting, Anna Marie, about the Social Security numbers?
Yes, I do.
The redaction. Okay. Social Security numbers have been in there for a long, long time. There is, I determined, no clear cutoff date when they stopped including them, which means there could be Social Security numbers on transactions that took place last week. Even though you could redact those, there's a great deal of personal, in many people's views, privacy information available in those records. Marriage records, as far as purchase and sale of property. I bought a piece of property with Anna Marie as my wife, and then the next time I didn't, and then that's public. And that's not really available, that kind of thing is not really available elsewhere. The Claudia did in fact include in her budget, her number that she cited to me was $31,000, which was smaller than the $40,000 that was bandied about at the last meeting, to comb through the entire digital record and extract all 9-digit numbers that appeared to be Social Security numbers. I don't see how you do otherwise. You're going to pull out a lot of 9-digit telephone numbers when you do that. But telephone number is 10 digits, so that would escape excision.
Well, you could format it like, isn't there like a dash in it?
Yeah, generally, sure.
So you can just format it like XXX dash XX, whatever that, just have a number.
So that was actually in Claudia's budget to do it. And my understanding is when that came up to the Board of Finance, the issue was not, do we want to spend $31,000 of the town's money? But wait a minute, you're exposing all these records with an unknown but considerable amount of personal information to the public. And the next thing you know, if it's available digitally online, it's all going to show up on whitepages.com and all of those. And that's very true. I mean, I looked up one person from my past on whitepages.com. It's unbelievable amount of information that's in there. It's a total personal history record of where this person has lived, any traffic tickets. I mean, obviously traffic tickets aren't going to show up in the town clerk records, but there's no question that there's a significant privacy concern among a lot of people in this town. And the Board of Finance, as far as I can tell, I didn't check the minutes or anything. Sounds like they tabled the whole notion of doing the redaction. It wasn't a matter of they didn't want to spend the money, but they were concerned about the privacy considerations of doing it. not doing the redaction, obviously, but doing the exposure of the database to the world strictly on an online basis. So right now it's nowhere. The money was not approved as far as I can tell, so it's not going to happen.
Well,
I'm not upset about that.
Well, yeah, it is a valid concern. You know, if like social security numbers, you can't, like, that is sensitive information.
Sure. That's ask somebody in the credit card business. That's 50% of what you need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe the name of their bank, which happened to be their mortgage lender. I mean, that's in there for sure.
But it's public information, so I could walk in there and look at that right now.
That's correct.
For anybody, really.
That's the argument on the side that we should make it available. Question is, do you want to make it available in a digital format that people could, in fact, scoop up it en masse, and utilize, commercially?
Yeah, and then it could be passed and put onto some other database, which then could be, you're right. If I wanted to steal Paul's information, or I could try to go in, get that information at the town clerk, but that's a lot of effort and risk, obviously, because now I'm walking in, versus if a database is online, someone who's in the business of stealing identities, we just made life a lot easier for them. So
I could do this anonymously, in my pajamas at home.
Right.
And scoop it into, I don't even remember the names of the half a dozen online purveyors of public information. They're out there selling this stuff to anybody who wants to pay $10.95 for it.
Yeah.
All of the addresses in New Canaan, Connecticut, for all the land records in New Canaan, Connecticut. Claudia has been very careful about this. She did, in fact, contact a half a dozen other towns, town clerks in a half a dozen other towns. And the response was anywhere from, we don't care, we'll just, throw it out there and to hell with what happens to it, to we're not doing that under any circumstances. So she's kind of leaning more in the direction of, it's not worth it, because you have to ask the question, to whose benefit does online total access accrue?
Right.
And I find it hard to answer that question, frankly.
Yeah.
I don't know, who is the broad market beneficiary of making that available online. I mean, it's available. It's available in the office. Somebody needs it, and it's been available. It hasn't impeded transactions for as long as they've kept records. It perhaps has made it easier when they do go in to get access to them, but you can't get access to them sitting at the train station.
Right. And it is, I think from a technology standpoint, it is digitized. So it is online, it's not paper anymore, right? So from that standpoint, it's advanced. It's just more of, controlled access.
Yeah.
And that's a policy decision, not a technology one in my mind. So
Bob keeps
Bob's
connection. I want to ask him the same question, because he had some conversations about that in the past.
Right. Bob, can you hear us? No, it doesn't look like his audio is working yet.
Anyway, Anne-Marie, my conclusion that I shared with Jeff was, I don't think this is something that the Technology Advisory Committee ought to be getting into. The issue is political.
It is an ethical, and it really just, it's a law. I mean, like, it's legal. So it's not our area of expertise.
Yeah, because the technology exists, right? So
yeah,
if they want to do it, they can. but then there's the privacy and all other things. So I'm not sure how we can help them. So
except just saying that we can state that, in terms of technology, it is easy to steal and easy to distribute if it's there online. That can be our statement, but it's not that we can actually work and do anything about it. So
right.
Well, we had Bob a moment ago.
Yeah, he's having technical issues. We can, while we're waiting for him, we can switch to another topic and then come back to this if
sure.
All right, yeah, let's do that. So the other one was broadband internet access. Remember, we talked about this last month there's complaint about quality of internet, access in town, meaning people having trouble with it and all of that of what they've had with Optimum to date. We talked about that Optimum has, or Altice now has fiber optic service in different parts of the town if you want it. I've signed up for it and I have it. I do say that there are a few glitches that it drops every now and then, but overall it's very nice. Like I said, I went through a lot of pain to get it, and the pain wasn't the installer, even though that took 3 hours and I didn't expect it. So that was just more of an expectation. It was going through customer service. So I've talked to Tucker, and Tucker's not able to make it tonight because the the town council is a meeting now at the same time. But talking to Altice to say, hey, what can you do? Look, we want to work with you. We'll partner with you, meaning we're helping, if we think this is the right solution, but you gotta help us because people are complaining on all sides, complaining about the existing coverage. They're complaining big time about customer service, and people who have upgraded are complaining in different ways. The experience I had, some other people had experiences with installers. So it's just not a good, we're sort of in between. So the proposal that Tucker had, which I agree, was just like to go back to Altice and say, look, try to get more business people on and, try to put pressure or whatever we can to say, look, from a town standpoint, look, we're willing to work with you. We know you're looking to move to an all fiber network, which of course will take years to complete. Because you got to get everyone off the old service, but you gotta help us out here because there's a lot of issues on that side. So that was the push, because Tucker still gets calls from, and I think Chris does as well, from people in town who are like having trouble with service and all that kind of stuff. So that was number one. Number two, Paul, you had.
So Jeff, you'd say that this was discussed with Altice. Not by you, by Tucker and
yeah. So they write back and forth with their main Altice. So Tucker has a main contact at Altice so she, whenever people complain, or complaining in a broader, that she'll send to them and say, look, here's the issue here. But I think the responsiveness, even in that situation, hasn't been as great. So it's like, look, we're getting hit with it. We're coming to you. You're telling us you're going to help us. So I think there's really is a push to say, hey, how can you help us more than just every time we, for us just to come to you one-on-one and, each time and try to solve for it. So I think that's, barring something else, any kind of approach is just to, I said the squeaky wheel, right? Like be the town that's complaining about it and saying as a group, we want help and not just yes, we have individual residents who need, their issues addressed, but there's a big, issue in the town. So, and other towns are feeling it too, but we're, as a group, we feel like there's, just keep pushing on them to say, how can you improve what you're doing?
Well, considering their history in customer service and their, I don't see the incentive of, where's the incentive for them to actually do anything?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it would somehow, they basically have the monopoly, and like and they act like that. So it is just, you know, why repair something that, you know, we have no interest.
Right. Yeah, I think I completely agree. I think the one question is, are there other providers, some of these 5G networks, others coming in? They're not going to be able to provide the same services, fiber necessarily for internet in particular. But I think there is potential of other, you know, solutions coming in. So, and whether it's in New Canaan or just overall in their market, I think, you know, I'm not sure what else to do other than, you know, whatever legal action. I mean, I don't know what the town can do other than,
because
you know.
because I mean, it's like if you're like the only restaurant on the beach, then you can have crappy food and bad service, and people still come to you.
Right.
Because
they're hungry.
Yeah, they're hungry, they need you, and there's no alternative. So that's the attitude. Like, yeah, we can be, you know, arrogant and annoying and rude, and that's fine. Where else are you gonna go? So I mean, the service is going to approve the moment there's competition.
Yeah. I think we're devolving into a situation where people are going to increasingly move to internet streaming TV.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can get YouTube TV and get local stations, like you can get New York stations. There's something called Lowcast, which will in fact give you all the broadcast stations in Fairfield County almost for free.
Right.
If I could convince my wife how to operate the select HDMI 3 instead of HDMI 2, neither of which mean anything to her whatsoever.
Right.
I mean, she understands the concept of changing from channel 3 to channel 15 on cable, but that's the only impediment to everybody getting off of cable TV.
Right. But I still need to get, but I need internet access for that.
Yeah.
It doesn't relieve Cablevision or Altice from providing internet service.
Right.
They don't really want to do that because it would become totally apparent that they were a public utility.
Right.
And that the pressure to regulate them as a public utility would increase.
Right.
And they are public utility. That's where they are. You know, more and more.
Legally, they're not.
Yeah.
That's the
they
problem.
are. In practice, they are.
Of course they are. They have been for 25 years since they got themselves politically relieved of the responsibility of being treated as public utilities.
Right.
They were an emerging industry at the time.
Right. It's just a global movement, like of having, you know, broadband or internet access. That's a human right. So I mean, they're just too comfortable right now.
Yeah.
But it's interesting they are investing in this fiber network, which I'm to a certain degree amazed. Like, why would you have this great legacy network? So that's a lot of money to invest, you know, to lay that wire all around town.
Yeah.
60% of the houses or whatever. So you've sort of invested in that direction, but you're not doing a lot to, you know.
But you don't really want people to buy it.
Well, so apparently if you're new to town, you know, you just moved into town, you moved into a house, even if there's coax lines to the house, if you call them up and say, I want cable service, they will restring fiber lines to your house. Unless, and this is what the installers told me, unless you know what you're talking about and say, no, leave coax, I don't want to change that, which I would imagine most people probably don't, you know the difference. Or if you just say, oh, you can get better, faster internet, people say great. But if you're doing that for new installs, but you're making it super hard for existing customers, A, you're not promoting it to them, and B, you're not, like, the conversion process is painful, mainly due to customer service. Not, the install is a 3-hour thing, but it's the customer service, which is just agonizing. So yeah, it's baffling. So if it was just, Anna Marie, to your point of like, oh, they're just milking it, then I would think, well, then why did you put a fiber system in? Why don't you just leave, you know, why would you even bother with that? Just keep your coax system and, you know, move on. So there's something, you know, it's not, the strategy is not quite clear, you know,
well, it's a badly run company. I mean, and it's a I don't know, maybe they're afraid of G5, or I don't know what's going on, but right. There's probably bad morale, and you know, it's just bad company all around.
So I think, because Tucker asked me like, well, what do we do? And I said, well, the only thing you do is just put pressure, unless there's, you know, some legal action. It's like literally just be the you know, the squeaky wheel, be the one that's.
We're going to be at least a half hour.
So anyway, so I think that's.
Well, do we have basis for lawsuit? Like, is there, like, what would be the basis? Like, has there been any cases like that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think, to be fair, it's sort of, well, if we really, you know, the town's talking to them, but has it really pushed that, you know, if we really push to a point where they're not providing it? Like, my guess at this point is we got to work with them, right? Like, I don't know what the lawsuit would be. It would have to be, you know, sort of a, you're not providing the service that you promised and people are paying for, and they don't have an alternative, so you're a monopoly. You know, I'm not a lawyer, so, but it would have to be something along those lines.
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, you can say that they have defrauded money or something, because they're not a false advertising or whatever. I mean, people have been sued for less.
Yeah, but trying to get anything done by suing them for bad customer service is, I mean, they're going to say, well, we never promised you a pony. I mean,
So that's why I said the only option is, because bringing, you know, some of the other towns like Wilton or Ridgefield, I guess this may be Wilton, they're thinking, oh, do they build their own network? You know, that's a expensive, long process. Hey, if that's something that the town should consider, so be it. But in the meantime, there's issues today. So like, you know, it's like, how do you help to try to address the issues for people today? So I think anyway, so just to sum it up, I think that's just want to give you an update. It's sort of, I guess, you know, continuing to push them and seeing if they will do anything more to improve, because there's, you know, clearly issues. Right? People aren't able to, you know, get their internet resolved, and they're paying for it, and they need it for kids' school and everything else. So the second piece of that, Paul, was your question on what about for low-income families, affordability? So they did send over, I didn't get a chance to look at it, but there is a program that Altice has for low income. Now, I don't know how easy it is to get it. Are people aware?
Do low-income families know it exists?
Do they know it exists? You know, does New Canaan qualify? So I'll shoot that over as well to both of you to take a look as well. But, you know, just to see, all right, they said, yes, we have a program, but if it is something that we should promote somehow, or maybe, you know.
Have you seen this description, or?
I have not seen it. So like I said, don't know what, you know, like I said, maybe it's you have to jump through a bunch of hoops to get it, which then makes it less, you know, very hard for people.
Maybe
they probably are not promoting that either.
Right. But there's nothing to say we, you know, through our website or whatever the right channels are, let people in town know, hey, this assuming if they qualify, assuming why, you know, why we wouldn't make life easier for them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. We should definitely find out about it.
So I'll send over the link. Maybe all three of us can take a look at it. And then we can chat about it next month. And if there's something, we could tee it up to Kevin and Tucker's or whatever, you know, to communicate through, whatever department or committee or whatever in town, what would be the right way to communicate to residents that would qualify. That's all right, so Bob, I emailed Bob and I said, if you're having trouble, just why don't you just call in? But I haven't.
Didn't Kevin say the other day or indicate somewhere along the line that he was going to get a hold of Bob and have an on the side discussion of the consolidated email project?
So Mike, so the answer is that, Mike, Bob, and Sid, who on Mike's team, Mike sent me an email earlier, said, sorry, I can't go, but that sounds like they've done, Sid's done the work, passed it off to Bob, and it sounds like it's completed to what Bob was looking for. So that's why I was hoping Bob could give the details, but it sounds like it might be in Bob's court now, which is great. And then when they need a refresh, we just need a process. And I think Sid might be willing to say, look, I could do it for you, short term, but we probably want to figure out what's a longer term. So as we get new, updates to the individual databases, how do we consolidate it into that central one? So the good news is, sounds like there's a lot of work there that's been done. So it's definitely progressing. But like I said, I don't know more of it than that piece of it. Wonder.
Mr. Single Sign-On is not often available for these meetings.
Yeah. So yeah. So Mike, like, just
Mike's two contributions were everything will be on the cloud.
Yeah.
Single sign-on is the only answer.
So I had an email exchange with him because we wanted to. That's why I put it on the agenda. And he said, look, if we have the list, we pull the list of what are the different platforms, which we have, the different we're using for all the different, systems. Then, it's then, as he said, then the next step would be, connecting it to what are the single sign-on vendors out there.
What's that? Something about single sign-on vendors?
So, you need someone to run the single sign-on, right? There are you need somebody else who is, who runs the sign-on system, right?
So that's not something that our web host can do.
I don't believe so, but I think it's a good question, definitely for Chris, I think once we have the list of what they are, is who could do it. We had this discussion as part of the Everbridge, when we were talking to them, and they said, no, we don't do it, but we can link to, if the vendor you're using, single sign-on vendor, has, and I forget the two formats, if they use either one of those two, we can hook into it.
Well, probably yes.
What does that kind of vendor do?
Single sign-on vendor?
This is simply a matter of a translation table when people sign in under one name, and it just links them to whichever of the underlying programs they want to have access to.
Right. I mean, that's more or less what it is, right?
But it's a simple program to be written there. Yeah, I'm sure as a business somebody would create.
Yeah, I would think there's more to like just the security aspect of it, right? So that you're logging in and it's passing the credentials over or whatever it might be, right? So that's just, I would think there's got to be a little bit more than just a pass, right? Because they've got to identify you and say, all right, here's your login. I'm now logging you into Everbridge, I'm logging you into the revised site or logging you into, what's the one, RecTrack.
Yeah.
So to your point, it may be fairly lightweight, like maybe it's not a huge, but there's, you know, some technology that someone needs, and I would think you would need, there's got to be some security associated with it, right? So it's not easy for someone to hack into it. But just from the, you know, if I think of what are the different sources we want to plug into it, can I just go through a few of them and tell me if there's any of those you can think of? So there's the Outcall Everbridge system, Parks and Rec, which will include the Lapham Center and Transfer Center, all on RecTrack. Sorry, RecTrack includes Parks and Rec, Lapham, and Transfer. Tax is on Invoice Cloud. Parking Department, I think it's Com Plus. The website was revised. The only other one that comes to my mind is the town clerk's office. You know, whatever the dog license is, whatever that system is.
Let me jump to the town website and see what we're already offering.
And oh, and the other one is Constant Contact, if that makes sense, so that you can go connect what emails you want. What email list you want to be on?
Oh, that doesn't have to be constant. You know,
oh yeah, good point.
Like, you know, I would say any of those HTML platforms.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And they probably have something. Whoever runs this, they probably have.
There's quite an array
a system adapted.
Quite an array of them on the site already. Documents and forms, agendas and minutes, appraisal lookup, bid notices, building inspection schedule, dog license renewals, emergency notifications. These all presumably you would have a single sign-on to the town of New Canaan.
Right.
And from there, you would get pointed to. These are, well, there would be issues, of course, with applications that are hosted outside of the town. I think particularly, well, let's see, who's hosted outside the town? I mean, meetings are not.
Well, parking
tickets aren't actually, they're not actually run by the town. That's strictly a contractual arrangement.
Tax is the same thing. You know, property tax bills, that's an external vendor. RecTrack would be the same way, right?
No, well, RecTrack, I believe, is running on town servers.
Oh, it is.
I mean,
okay.
Chris would have to answer that, but so right. I'm pretty sure we're not operating on the town servers of, I forget what the name of the company is. So I think there are several applications where you'd have to ensure that something was handed over legitimate. The other people want to make sure it was legitimate handover.
Right.
But it doesn't seem insurmountable or particularly complicated. Right.
Well, I think that's what Mike Abbott was saying is it's not. It's just, you know, who are the vendors and, you know, how can we connect them? I mean, the nice thing is then it's easy to sign up for, you've signed up for one service. Now, you know, that's your main ID and password. Do you want to now access another service? You know, you could use the same ID and password and it would transfer it over.
Yeah.
And then that helps with your centralized database, right? Because you now have one ID with the town and, here's your credentials that you want to then, well, how do you want to be notified about emergency and everything else? Click, you know, all that stuff. So that could help us get to that, you know, you have one sort of profile and then you say, what do I want? Yeah, give me the newsletter for the rec department, or yeah, give me those email reminders when taxes are due, whatever it might be.
Yeah, the whole notion of having individual usernames and passwords to get access to 7 or 8 things in the town was archaic.
Right. And we have now several databases, right? All of that, this whole project of consolidation is because we have data in all these other locations.
I mean, conceptually, this is not the least bit complicated.
Right.
I grant you that there are some issues you got to iron out when you try to implement it, but
right.
You know, when I look at the resources that we have against IT projects in this town, there are 3 people.
Yeah.
And that's probably the biggest reason why you might want to outsource the front end to a vendor.
Right.
I mean, yes, it could be done, but would that be the straw that breaks the camel's back? Is the way I'm looking at it.
Well, especially if they actually have to code it, right? Like there's a group that, then they've got to maintain it, to your point. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, when my ID goes down, who's, do they have Sal's home number? So like.
Yeah, or I'm accessing, I'm doing the work online from home via Cablevision, and they cut me off.
Yeah.
1:15 in the morning and don't tell me they're going to do it.
Right.
That is a repetitive ploy of theirs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny on that, just I'm going on that tangent, is that I have new cable boxes, and they smaller, they look, certainly easier. They don't do anything. There's no like display on them, so they're sort of bizarre, but all of a sudden at like random time, they'll just reboot. Like at 7 o'clock in the morning, I'll just see it rebooting, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's great. So so anyway, it's obviously they're working out the kinks, hopefully. But back to single sign-on. So I think the key is, we have the list. I think it's, next thing, and I can go back to Mike out and say, all right, how do we identify, can he help us with, what are the next steps? What's the, who are the vendors? Just so we even have an idea of like, what is this? I mean, is there vendors that help towns or small, organizations do it versus, like they have, what's it called? Login.gov is the single sign-on tool for the US government. Okay, that's a little bit bigger than what we need. Yeah. But, it's that concept, right? But is there those types of players, and we wouldn't have the budget for some enterprise grade solution.
Well, I would think there's it's a box, like, it's like the people, their company probably have a package,
right?
It's a code that already has been written. Like it doesn't have to be customized for us. There's probably a system you can buy, okay, for $45 a month, let's say, like you have this like a system and it like maintains itself, and because it's not complicated, so and the code is there already, somebody has it and they can just license it for us,
and that's who are the vendors that are licensed. There's certainly vendors for enterprises, right, for big companies and for the US government. Those would be way overkill for what we need. And the price tag would be overkill as well, right? Just that's their model. But to your point, Anna Marie, who are the small players that help small businesses or ideally small governments, like how to towns or cities, that would be perfect for us, right? They get it. They may be working with a lot of these vendors already. Anyway, so I think that's the question.
Yeah, it just have to be careful that like as soon as you say municipal, they're like, okay, the price just went up. Yeah. So
and it's like, okay, well then we can't afford that, so that's nice.
Yeah.
Paul, sorry, were you going to say something?
No.
Okay. So I guess on that, to this topic, all right, so the next steps there are a good discussion, all good questions though. So let me go back to Mike, since obviously he's not able to join, and get more clarity on that. So hopefully you can bring more clarity for the next meeting so we can advance it. We still have Bob's phone, but no Bob. So we may have to, I emailed him, So we may have to table that discussion for next month.
I got the impression that he was discussing that with Kevin this evening, and that's one reason why Kevin wasn't going to be here.
Well, yeah, well, I knew Kevin wasn't going to be here because of the town council. Town council has a special meeting they just put on the books for today.
Yeah.
So that's why Tucker's not here either. So, and then Chris is on vacation this week. So we sort of have the perfect storm of, you know, our key players. And then of course, Bob's got some technical difficulties, so.
Well, it's my understanding that it's in a good condition and that they have, you know, created at least the database for seniors, because
right.
You know, we got the call. So
I wanted to ask Bob that same question of how do they do that? So how do they, you know, with Everbridge, maybe Chris could answer it, is, you know, is it just there's a switch in there that says, okay, they have the seniors isolated in Everbridge and they just say, okay, we're just going to send them the phone call and everybody else is getting the email. Like, I think that's great.
Yeah.
Just how they did it. Was it a lot of like, was Bob scrambling behind the scenes to get it done? And, you know, it looks clean to us, but, you know, it was the hamster on the wheel behind the scenes. So it was,
yeah, it's probably most likely you can sort groups, like,
right.
You know, for the people, you know, it's like all or just town employees or I don't know, teachers only or so.
But it would have been set up, right? We'd have to set that up in Everbridge.
Yeah.
So in order to switch that over, because I don't know if that was set up like that when we first set it up. Don't know. So, but yeah, I agree with you. I think there's a lot of good progress there. We'll just have to table that to next month.
Yeah.
To learn more. So given that, I think we'll table that session. Any other topics? Anyone else want to bring up, either discuss today or to put on the agenda for future meetings?
Nope.
No, I don't have any.
Yeah. All right. So I guess with nothing else, then I would say let's motion.
What I would really like to do in the next meeting is to find out from Chris Kaiser what they are actually working on. They get requests from all over the place, all over the town. And it's not clear to me where they're spending their development time. Clearly, they've got a significant online, you know, maintenance of operations business going on. But what are they doing beyond that?
Yeah.
I mean, what's his priorities at the moment?
That's a great idea. Yeah, let's put that on the agenda for next month.
Yeah.
Have him just do a, you know, sort of update of what's the IT group working on, what are their priorities for this year or for the next few months or whatever the right time.
I mean, they're getting, forget about the technology advisory committee. They're getting input from the town council, from the board of finance,
right,
from the police department, from possibly the schools. You know, how they sorted them out and what are they trying to get done?
Right.
And how we could help them possibly.
Yeah, there may be areas that we can help. You're right, Anna Marie, that they're not recognizing, but, you know, and I always ask Chris, I asked him, because he said he couldn't make it. I said, is there anything that, you know, you'd want us to bring up? And he said, no, but I think, Paul, your idea may surface something that he's not thinking about. And it's just because
he's talked about various parts of it in the past, but I mean, it's time for, you know, an overall update.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like IT is like just putting out a lot of little fires.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just, you know, I don't know how much development time they actually have.
Right.
Because it's just, if people call them about, which is ridiculous, about their internet service, I mean.
Yeah. So that shapes things about the hiring of a vendor to do, you know, front end for a single sign-on.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, you know, I could be persuaded that it's better to do that, depending on what it would cost.
Right, especially if they're getting questions from everyone on.
There's been some I would say blowback about the single sign-on thing, about what's the benefit of doing it. And the benefit is simplicity and ease of access for citizens, but it really provides the ongoing basis for the updating of the consolidated email project.
Right.
You can't just let that linger and have it, break down in several places
right.
at the same time. If you keep setting up a separate database and RecTrack and a separate database and the transfer station and a separate database at parking,
this just continues. Like
your ability to have an effective consolidated email system is it's gonna water away.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've sounds like we've come to a good solution for now, meaning we've consolidated, but that tomorrow, the day after, it starts over again.
Well, I think there was some reaction to the idea of single sign-on, because that was viewed, I think, by some people, Kevin included, as putting the horse before the cart, right? Because we were trying to get a single, a consolidated email database, to effectively use the Everbridge system.
Right.
So it was kind of like, well, why are you worrying about this front end when we don't have the end?
Right.
It's nice to have a front.
Yeah. And now that we've gotten further along, we're like, okay, well, we've solved it for as much as we can. We think. Yeah. We'll learn more. So like, there's not much further we can go on the consolidation. It's now, well, what are you going to do going forward, right?
How are you going to maintain it?
Yeah. And is this really the best approach, the optimal approach? It's it works. That's good, or we think it is. So, but it's hey, that's our job is to help think, how do we make it even better? Okay.
Anna Marie, would you want to make a motion to end the meeting, or should I?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
And I will, all in favor?
And my teens are getting crazy, so it's time to go.
Yeah, my wife already poked her out the corner saying, "Are you still doing this?"
Oh my God! It's like they've lost, like when I first started having these Zoom meetings, we're like, Mama is on the phone, and now it's like anything goes.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff, see if you can get your Republicans to attend the meetings.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Enjoy your evening, and we'll chat again.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
See you next month.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye-bye.